Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to the EFL Debate League One podcast. Selection of teams in different situations to talk about this evening. A couple of clubs from South Yorkshire in Barnsley and Rotherham who've had contrasting starts to the season, haven't they? With Barnsley off to a flyer under Conor Hourihane and more difficult times for Matt Hampshire at Rotherham. We're also going to be talking about Cardiff City and the strong start they've made under Brian Barry Murphy, despite a very quiet summer transfer window in both directions. But we're going to start by talking about Exeter City as they grabbed a crucial win on Tuesday night, 1-0 at Wycombe Wanderers. If you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. So I'm delighted to be joined by a Grecian in Ben. Thanks so much for joining us, Ben. Really appreciate your time this evening. A bit of a had to show some battling qualities, I guess, for that victory at Adams Park.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pretty. I think anyone who watched it will slightly bemoan the quality. But at the end of the day, when you go to a team like Wycombe, I know they've lost some key players from last season, but it's a big away win for us. It's good to get points on the board. I guess the realistic goal is to battle towards 50 points as quickly as possible to stay up. And you'll take an ugly away goal in the last 10 minutes if that's what's going to get us there. So sure. Yeah, I think we've been unlucky in a couple of games maybe this season. So it's nice to see it starting to balance out at least so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose are we looking at the 4-1 win over Blackpool in week 2 as the best example of what Exeter City can do when they're performing at the maximum?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when Gary Caldwell's football is played to the best of its ability, that's what it looks like. There's lots of really nice little triangles, players playing with a lot of confidence, moving the ball on into key zones early on. And we started that way against Mansfield. So the first 20 to 25 minutes looked very similar. But then we kind of lost confidence almost and reverted back to the worst of what we can do, where we kind of just play the ball around the back without any real impetus. But yeah, the Blackpool win was great. It's really nice to have a dominating win. We didn't have too many of those last season to my memory. Yeah, a nice positive start to the season, even if I'm sure the goodwill only extended for a few days and then we lost. So it is what it is at the end of the day.
Sure. Nice to have a couple of wins on the board at this stage, I guess. I guess Joe Whitworth, looking at the highlights, made some big saves in that victory at Wycombe. I was a little bit surprised that you managed to get him back because I was expecting him to either get a championship loan or at the very least go to a top-end League One side. With no insult intended, Ben. So has he shown his value already after returning?
Yeah, I mean, he seems to have carried on exactly where he left off at the end of last season. Wycombe weren't overall, they didn't give us too much trouble up until after we scored, really. And then there was probably 4 or 5 key saves in quite a short amount of time that shows what he's best at. I think, he has some of his critics surrounding his height, but I'd argue that by being a bit shorter, it makes him more agile to get to some of those chances. Whereas maybe if he was that good and he was 6'5", he'd be nowhere near us. So, is the fact of the matter. But no, he's excellent. He seems to love being here, which is really nice to get him back. It sort of shows he understands what we can do for him, which tends to be how we work best. When players buy into what we can do for them, they don't stay for very long, whether they're here on short-term contracts or on a loan like Joe is. But yeah, he's an excellent young player. He seems to be a great professional, and we knew what we were getting from him when he came back, and he's started showing it already.
Now, I can't remember, Ben, whether when we did the summer deep dive, with the Ethan Brierley had signed at that point. I've got a feeling he might have actually officially signed like within the hour of us finishing recording or something like that. But I definitely felt at the time that it was a really good, probably one of my favourite signings of your summer, because I think he's going to bring a lot of creativity to your midfield with not only the ability he has, but also that bravery on the ball, that willingness to accept and demand the ball under pressure. Have you seen sort of glimpses of that so far?
Yeah, he's excellent. And it was, I think, Jaden Wareham and Brierley signed within a day of us finishing our pod, which kind of rendered everything I said pointless, but most of it is anyway. Um, yeah, he reminds me of, obviously, in terms of our sort of playmakers in recent years, we had Ryan Woods and then Tom Carroll, and I think on the ball he possesses quite a lot of the similar abilities, but he's a lot more mobile. So he's
Was
very.
it Lloyd James as well, the other one you had a few years going back a
Oh
bit further?
yeah. So we tend to have playmakers that are good on the ball, but maybe not quite as mobile.
Mm.
Brierley, with his youth, he manages to get around the pitch a little bit
Yeah.
more. I know a lot went round online about Ryan Woods' running style, and I think the less said about that, the better. But yeah, he's always got the ball, from what I've seen so far, one or two touches, looking to play it into a better area, and that was best seen against Blackpool, where he was, opening up areas of the pitch that not many of us could see. And you also see that he's still trying to do it at times when our football isn't quite as good. You can see him getting quite frustrated where he's looking up and the pitch is quite static. So it's nice to see a player that young come in and try and, grab hold of the game and make stuff happen rather than slotting in or, going hiding a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. So in terms of that back three of Ed Turns, who I really like, especially from his time at Leyton Orient, Jack Fitzwater as well, who I think is quite an intelligent defender, and Sil Svinkles, who's got that high potential one you've got on loan from I think it's Aston Villa. How are they sort of settling together as a defensive trio?
Dribs and drabs. I think they look like they could be a really good unit. Unfortunately, Swinkles picked up a knee injury on Tuesday, and we're waiting for the scans to come back for that one. Ed Turns is excellent. I absolutely love him. He's got that real bravery as a centre back to try and carry the ball out, which we didn't think we'd have much of after Crammer left last year, given how good he is. But he's similar vein of player in that he gets the ball to feet and he tries to bring it forwards, which is great. Fitzwater, it's really nice to see him having a sort of run in the first team. When he got a new deal midway through last season, he'd been injured for quite a while, and I think lots of us looked at that and thought, how's he? He's got an extra 2.5 years on his deal here. We must be really confident that these are injuries that he can bounce back from. But he has been excellent. I think in a back three of those three, I think he's potentially even stood out, which is a real testament to him and how hard he's fought to get back into the squad. He didn't have loads of opportunities when he was fit because of Sweeney, but obviously club legend, but potentially moving to someone a little bit more mobile in Fitzwater now. It's not to speak ill of Sweeney's, obviously, but everyone offers different things, and whilst he's out with an injury, it's great to see Fitzwater as our only fit right-footed centre back. Putting himself about.
No, it's interesting actually because Ed Turns is left-footed, so it's odd having him on the right of a back three. So I'm not sure. I don't know whether that would be the ideal way to move forward when you've got all the personnel that you'd be looking for. So maybe, I mean, do you think there'll be room in the budget to bring in one or two more faces between now and the end of the window?
I like to think so. I think Gary said recently we were looking at possibly 3 or 4 more. Whether or not that materializes or not, I don't know. I know that our budget has dropped back a bit from January. It's the same as what it was at the start of last season, which is not ideal when everyone else's budget seemed to be catapulting upwards. But
Yeah,
we're very sensible with our transfers. I don't think we'll waste money on players that we don't necessarily need. I'd be surprised if we looked at any more defenders. We've got young Charlie Cummins on the bench at the moment, who looks like a really good prospect. I'm really excited by him. I think maybe a player like Reece Cole, when Reece isn't there, we look a little bit, as was the case on Tuesday, we lack the sort of oomph to really push forward, and he's had his injury problems. So I think that's something we definitely need to replace, as well as potentially just more, a little bit more flair, a little bit more players that ask questions rather than players that are rooted in a game plan which has kept us up for several seasons now, but isn't that exciting, I would say.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think maybe creativity is what we're lacking rather than defenders at this stage, even though injuries make it look that way.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll get plenty of creativity from Ethan Brierley. In terms of, I guess, one of the challenges you've had, I do understand why in recent seasons you've had to just have the one top isolated, because you've sometimes needed to prioritise having enough cover and adapting to opposition who have spent a lot more money on their squads than you have as a fan-owned club, because that's so tough at this level to sort of sustain that. It must be quite exhausting in a way for the club to kind of keep up with it all. So I do, I'm very acutely aware of the challenges that you've faced, but have there been any signs of Magennis getting a little bit more support and a bit more maybe service perhaps this season, and bodies around him?
Yeah, so Josh didn't start the first couple of games of the season. He was shaking off a knock from pre-season, which has meant we've got to see Jaden Wareham and Jack Aitchison coming back into the team. So those two have struck up quite a nice little partnership.
Yeah.
And we do seem to be playing, maybe not with two up front, but even on Tuesday we had Magennis and then Sonny Cox in behind. So we do seem to be playing with two strikers, maybe not as two out-and-out strikers, but like you said, I think that would leave us a little bit too top-heavy for the style of football we want to play. And Jaden Wareham's made a fantastic start so far. I think it's a tricky job for Jaden in that he's gone from sort of a bench player at Reading to now he's our main man and we need him to score 15 goals a season, which is, I think he's got the shoulders to carry it on. But yeah, he has been supported. I think Aitchison's made a strong start after not featuring very much last season for one reason or another. And that's contributed to us, scoring 6 goals in 4 games. Granted, 4 of them were in the same game. But I think there is a little bit more going forwards. Like I say, when we look creative, we look really, really dangerous. And when we're lacking, the strikers get isolated anyway because everyone's sat in a back 9 or something like that. So
yeah, for sure. So with Sonny Cox then, Ben, it's felt a little bit like the number of homegrown players at Exeter City had reduced, but more recently you've seen the likes of Dean come through, played at wing back on Tuesday night, and then Sonny Cox, who's a poacher, who's had some good, certainly did well on loan at Yeovil, didn't he, a year or two ago. Is there a bit more evidence of a bit more life kind of flowing through from the academy and a little bit more encouragement in that area?
Yeah, I think so. I think moving up to League One, it does. When we were in League Two, we were one of the better sides frequently for probably most of the 10 years that we were down there. And that gives you a little bit more leeway to try and bring players through and give players opportunities. When you move up into League One, it's so crucial to get points on the board that it does make it quite difficult to take the risk when you could have potentially more surefire proven player at that level. Sonny has shown what he can do in bits and pieces. He's definitely a finisher. When his goal against Blackpool sort of epitomised everything that's really good about his game by being quite proactive and running towards the front post. So that was great to see. I do worry I think maybe at this level you need to be either very quick, very strong, or have very good feet. I think you may not have all 3 of those because then you'd be playing miles up. And I do wonder sometimes if Sonny is perhaps not quite there in all 3 of those attributes. But it's nice to see him coming on. I'm not terrified when I see him coming off the bench, as we've had with some previous strikers in recent years who I won't name to be polite. But yeah, it's nice to see Sonny getting minutes. Same with Tom Dean, as you say. I think it was nice to see him breaking into the side. Like I say, we've got Charlie Cummins. There's a few knocking around in our side that I really like the look of.
Yeah, well, that's encouraging to see because as much as it is really tough, and by the way, you're not the first team that's been good at bringing young players through in League Two, and then in League One it becomes a lot more difficult. So I'm well aware of that, but it is nice to see it start to come back through a bit more. In relation to how confident you were or weren't, perhaps when we spoke in the summer deep dive, are you, has your kind of position on Exeter City's prospects this season changed at all?
Not really. I think aspirationally, I went for a sort of 16th, 17th place around there. And I think that would be, I know it sounds pessimistic, but I think that would be a really good outcome.
Yeah.
I won't dredge up the budget talk anymore. We're all very well aware of that. But I think when you look at the teams that are down and around us, we do very well to finish above some of them. When you look at sort of your Peterboroughs and stuff like that, who have recently been a really strong League One side, and they do have a decent squad. Obviously, they've got Archie Collins, who's knocking around there, one of our own. So there are some really strong sides towards the bottom at the moment. I doubt our green neighbours down the road will be knocking around in the bottom four for too long, no matter what their fans seem to say. So it's more about us maintaining the consistency to outrun the bottom four than it is for us to look really high up in the table. And I know that that's not very aspirational, but I think you also have to be realistic and say that, you know, a playoff run it would be lovely. It would be amazing. But I think so many things would have to line up and go right for us to get
You
up
had
there.
one season in, was it 2010 or 2011, where you nearly got into the playoffs once, but it is very rare for Exeter City.
Yeah, especially now. I think Birmingham set out quite a good blueprint last season, where if you go down and you spend loads and loads of money, you're kind of okay, and you probably go back
Oh
up
yeah,
again.
we're visionary, Ben. We're innovators about learning how to be successful in League One. Just spend 20 million on a striker. It's fine.
Yeah, and what a club that produced that striker, by the
It's a
way.
one size fits all solution, Ben. That's what it is.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if Michael Jordan watches these, but if we're looking at sort of American goats of sports, if you'd like to come in and buy a club, you're very welcome to give us 20 million to sign a striker. But yeah, I think the transfer fees and those sorts of things are going up and up and up, and that's fine. That is football. It was bound to happen eventually, with just trickle down from the Premier League and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think another non-relegation season where we don't really look like getting relegated, even if the football sometimes makes it look like we should. I think that is a success. It's not an exciting answer, but it is more exciting than finishing bottom and going back to playing other teams that aren't quite as exciting as the ones that come down from the Championship, you know, like your Cardiffs and your Lutons and your Birminghams. You don't get those in League Two particularly. So
Yeah.
it's nice to stay up around this level.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, look forward to catching up with you later in the season, and all the best.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, Gab. Thanks for having me on.
Top man. Delighted to be joined now by Andy Simcox from Red All Over. Good evening, Andy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You must be delighted with Barnsley's start to the season.
Oh, I am. 10 points, and it's a funny old game, Gabe. You've got people have got to understand and not get too giddy. Both Barnsley and other clubs that. In one of the games, we were drawing, having come from 2-0 down, drawing 2-2 at home to Brentford. Burton, not Brentford. Be nice to be playing Brentford. Burton, and scored an injury time winner. So, that's an extra couple of points. But, on the other hand, Bolton scored an equaliser against Tenman with 3 minutes to go. So that could have been a 1-0 win to us, but we're a draw. So, depending on how you look at it, I think it was a fair result, if I'm honest. But that's 2 points dropped. So it's easy, isn't it? There are very thin margins between getting 1 point, getting no points, or getting 3 points. And we've managed to even it out. So, yeah, I'm pleased with it. The same thing in I don't want to talk about the Cup, but same in the EFL Cup. Against Fleetwood, we were playing really, really well and in the lead twice. And then, I'm going to say, throw it away in injury time to make it 2-2, but fortunately came through on penalties. Very, very thin margins. Oh, it's football, isn't it? Success and failure are very near to each other.
They certainly are.
I'll tell you what, though, it was nice to listen to. I know you want to talk about things. It was nice to listen to Ben talk about Jack Aitchison, because we always liked Jack, and always wished him well. And I hope he has. Sounds like he started off well, and I hope he has a good season after the issues at different times, injuries and what have you last season for him. So good luck to him.
Yeah, best wishes to Jack Aitchison. In terms of Barnsley, Andy, one thing that's really stood out to me is the fluidity of the attack with Davis Keeler-Dunn, Dave McGoldrick, Caelan Vickers, and then Adam Phillips joining in. They've got a real synergy between them, haven't they?
They have indeed, and they move about a fair bit. I mean, there was a time when, just before we were playing Bolton, I went onto Bolton's Fan Zone podcast and were rubbishing their stats man, who was saying that Adam Phillips were playing just behind David McGoldrick, and no, it should have been Davis Keeler-Dunn. Only against Bolton, it was Adam Phillips and Davis Keeler-Dunn were more on the left, but they move about a lot. It's difficult to they pop up everywhere. So, like you said, it's lovely to watch, and it's the fluidity of it. What was also nice is the lovely football that we played against Fleetwood Town, because there are only 5 of the team that started the previous weekend, but the football at times is just lovely to watch. We make some mistakes and give the ball away and cause ourselves trouble at times, but the fluidity of our football and the passing and movement and the pressing, it's after the last couple of seasons of, I'll say, doom and gloom, even though we got to the playoffs, just over a year ago. But the style of play, it's so nice to see our team pressing and attacking, getting the ball and looking forward rather than looking at who I can pass it back to. That's good. And some of that, it's a mixture. We've got some experienced players like David McGoldrick, who's nearly as old as me. But we've got a lot. Don't leave it, Gabe. No, leave it. But also some very young players, most of which are ours. Not all of them, but most of which are ours. And that's lovely to see, because the older players, the more experienced players, are definitely having a good effect on the younger lads that are on the pitch. So we're a blend. So it's nice.
One thing that really stands out to me and seems to be bearing fruit at the moment is I think the murmurings, sort of internally, are that Conor Hourihane seems to be very detail driven in the work that he does, and possibly more so than other managers Barnsley might have had. And so, do you feel like that's kind of evident on the pitch at the moment, the quality of the coaching, Andre?
It is. I mean, it was pointed towards the end of last season, and it was clear what he wanted. But he needed the players to play in the way that he wanted them to play. And it said towards the end of last season, and he stuck by it, that instead of playing a back 3 with wing backs, he wanted to play a straight back 4, have a couple of players in the middle, and 3 just behind a striker, which happens to be David McGoldrick. And he stuck to that, and it's by no fluke that he didn't think that the 3 right wing backs that we got could play as a proper ordinary right back as opposed to wing back. So they've been moved on, a mixture of selling and loaning out. They moved on, and he's brought ones in. So we've got Tanai Watson, who's playing at right back on a year's contract. He did not, since he left Charlton. And we got Johnny Bland, flipping out. We got Johnny Bland, who's only 19, who in truth is a central midfield player, but he can play right back and has done. And he's going to be a big star for us. He's 19, really? And he's a quality player. People talk about an old head on young shoulders, and it's Johnny Bland. It's quite remarkable just what quality he has, whether it's on the ball
or he was a midfielder, Johnny Bland.
He is. He's played in midfield in the cup, but he's also been playing at right back as well. And I like him in midfield, but we've got a lot of midfielders at the minute. I just like him playing, and wherever it is, he's he puts a shift in. He works really, really hard. But it's not just that; it's the quality of his play that's something else. 19-year-old Gabe, and he plays like he does. Wonderful to see. Oh.
What I really like, Andy, is that which I think this has been an important thing for Barnsley, and I don't think it was maybe possible last season because of having a manager who favoured more experienced players. But I like that Conor Horan's going early. So you've mentioned Johnny Bland there. I would go for Vimal Yoganathan, and I think that under a different manager it'd be very easy to say, yeah, but they've only done it at academy level, or yeah, they've only done it in the National League, so they need a League Two loan. Whereas I think Horan's gone a bit earlier, and I think Barnsley have to be proactive as a club because that's how they generate saleable assets. If you stall and stall and stall, it's actually harder to develop players in the long run. So that's an aspect of Horan's management that I'm really excited about.
Well, Birmingham can sign Vimal for 20 million if you want. Be happy with that. You get a good player for that. Vimal's 19. Last season, he was inexperienced. He played now and again. I know he ultimately went out on loan to Oldham, and that's made a big difference to him, as has, when he's come back. And the trust that we put into him is now showing the real potential, because he's always had the ability, but he seems to want to fight everybody every game. He gets stuck in every game. Sometimes not brilliantly. He got sent off against Bolton. Harsh in my view. Two bookings. Very, very harsh in my personal view. But then again, I'm biased. What can I say? I'm biased. But he's a good player. He drives forward with the ball. He's got long legs that gets round the ball and gets tackles in. He doesn't shirk. He's got some speed, so he covers some ground. So he's going to be a star for us. I think, unless somebody tells me wrong, I think he's the first Tamil to play in the Football League, and it's an absolute credit to him as well as to us. So you brought him up. Just watch how he goes, because bit by bit he's going to get better and better. So if we can just not fight anybody, to be a big help.
Absolutely, you want that bit of tenacity on the pitch, but curb it slightly. But
well, I think he's sinned against more than sinner. But like I say, I'm biased, so.
Absolutely. Luke Connell then, Andy, I'm curious to ask you about, because I absolutely love Luke Connell in the 22-23 season, and then he had some certain challenges at the beginning of the following campaign that are still a little bit ambiguous, and his form since then hasn't quite been at the same level. Are there any signs of the 22-23 version of Luke Connell returning to the surface?
Yeah, there is. I mean, last season we did, like you say, there's a mystery illness, but it certainly seemed to sap his energy. But this season, I know it's only young, we are, in my view, and I think there were many Barnsley fans, seeing the Luke Connell that we saw a couple of years ago, dominating midfield, spraying the ball about, getting tackles in, doing a lot of covering of the ground, pressing, defending. So having shots from free kicks, shots from outside the box, is the lad that we signed. So I'm really, really chuffed for him. That, for me, although as I say, it's very early in the season, he's back to his old self, I think.
We've mentioned players who have benefited from loan spells. We spoke about Yoganathan earlier. Jack Shepherd, do you think he's profited from that productive loan spell at Bradford in League Two?
Oh, absolutely. At the time, I was I didn't want us to loan him to anybody because I wanted him to play, if I'm honest. So I really, really like Jack Shepherd. But the loan at Bradford City, and with them getting promotion and what have you, it's made a big difference to him. He played in the week on the against Peterborough on the right of the defence, because we had two left footers. He's not naturally there. He's usually on the left hand side of the centre back pairing.
Yeah,
he's a good player. Occasionally, he's still youngish. Occasionally, he'll give the ball away with not the best of passes. I love the way he can get the ball up the line, left-footed up the line, and it not immediately go out to play like it is with some players who play football. He's commanding in the air. He attacks the ball for corners and free kicks and what have you. He's an excellent player, I think. He's got a long way to go, but he's getting there bit by bit. So I'm really, really, really chuffed how he's come back and how he's. It's like having a new signing. If we, people saying, "Oh, Bradford City will sign him, he'll not come back," and all that, and they might have done, but they didn't, and he wanted to come back and use that loan spell to show what he could do, and then come back to his own club, and he's done that. And truthfully, if we'd have signed a centre half for, I don't know, say $500,000 from Bradford City after they got promotion last season, we'd all be raving about him. But he's our player, and I am raving about him.
Absolutely, too right. Yeah, because I think let's not forget the first season, 23-24, he was stepping up from step 4 in non-league with Pontefract Collieries.
That's right.
A huge step up to League One. So I think, dropping down a level and showing what he can do in League Two, that does seem to have done his confidence great. Patrick Kelly, what's the verdict early on, Andy?
Well, he did well last season with Doncaster Rovers, didn't he? Then winning the League Two and coming up, and he's one of our own. I think we've now signed him on a 3-year contract. I think I don't know if there's an extra year to us or what. I'm not sure. He played in the League Cup against Peterborough, and he started not against Peterborough, it's Fleetwood, and he started against Peterborough on Tuesday night on account, mainly I suppose, on account of him being suspended for a game. This is you're going to get sick of hearing this. He's a quality player. He had a steady start in the first half, but as he got more and more into the game, the second half he was phenomenal. He can close down quickly. He can get a tackle in. He's got some skill, and when he gets the ball, rather than let me turn around and see if I can pass it back to a centre half, he gets the ball, turns and drives forward, frightens defenders because somebody's just driving at them. And he's going to be an absolute, I keep saying it, he's going to be an absolute star for us this season. Can't speak highly enough of him. What a signing.
Wonderful stuff. So with all that in mind then, Andy, are you a little bit more optimistic about Barnsley's prospects than even you were before the season?
I mean, we got some. I am, and I'll talk about them. But we got some more. We've signed Reyes Cleary, who's, I know you want to talk about under 21s, but he's 21. Cleary, and he's one hell of a winger. He's small, stocky, but he can half shift. Quickest feet I've seen for a long while. Somebody comes trying to take the ball from him, he moves the ball quickly. But by hell, he can motor and take people on. Again, he played. Had come on a few times as a substitute. And a couple of them not really been able to get into it. But he played against Fleetwood in the cup on the left wing, and my God, he was easily the man of the match. He was absolutely phenomenal. I would be terrified of playing against him because he's so strong and so quick. So and don't forget, I know he's not around, but we've also got Caelan Vickers, who were at Mansfield last year. We got on loan from Brighton, and he's, when you say, oh, he's not, he is pulling up trees. This lad, he's scoring goals. But again, he's having a really good interaction with Adam Phillips on the right hand side, particularly, and also whoever's at the behind them, whether it's Tenai Watson or Johnny Bland. The interactions between them, and he sets off. He scored the winning goal at Peterborough. I know it was a deflection goal. Player headed it past.
It looked like a good strike, actually.
It was a good strike, and he got the ball in a really tight area. As he can, again, another one with quick feet, can move it about and pulled inside, and again inside, and then again inside, and then unleashed a left footer for a right footer, and 1-0 to the Barnsley. He's not going to be ours. We're going to enjoy him while we've got him this season, like Mansfield did last year. I mean, I've got a niece and a great niece that support Mansfield, and they're not happy that we've got him. My niece Emma wishes him the best. Izzy, yet again, my great niece Izzy, she hates me because we've got him because she wanted to keep him. I don't mind upsetting him. So, and don't forget, we've got Kieran Flavel in goal.
Oh yeah, as a back up to Murphy Cooper. Yeah,
up to Murphy Cooper. He's 21, and he's going to be a really, really good goalkeeper. So Georgie Gent, who's currently out injured, he's 21. I think he's going to be out for a while yet. And I think just starting to train, we've got your old friend Fabio Giallo, who's only 19 still. Been talking about Fabio Giallo for 3 years, and he's still only 19. Hopefully, he's not going to be a player that's constantly injured. Different injury to the shoulder injury that kept him out a few times last year. So hopefully, he'll come back and be stronger. Another one, these young players, particularly the wingers, we've got your Vickers and your Cleary and what have you, and Giallo, not frightened to take players on. The youth, the no fear of youth taking players on, and it frightens people. So chuffed to death with the way it's going. It's not looking bad for us.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you think that one of my sort of bigger optimisms for Barnsley in terms of the long-term picture is I think having Hourihane was probably going to bring more out of Mladen Sormas and we'd see better recruitment because it was a bit more joined up. Do you think that's something that we're seeing pan out at the moment?
I think so. When we talked last time in the summer, it was before some of the signings, and it were a bit of a worry after last year. We were moving players up but not getting anybody in. And I think I tried to tot it up last week. I think, including about 3 loan players, we've moved on 21 players this summer, which is an awful lot of players. So we've definitely brought the squad down to a more manageable level. But we've signed less players, but real quality players that are currently making a difference. So and are playing in the style that he wants. So I think I said can't remember if I said 10th or 8th last season. It could get better. Like I said, success and failure is a very thin line between the two. But as it stands, we're on the success side at this minute. It could all change, couldn't it? Could all change. We're at Wimbledon on Saturday. It could all change. Although I am hopeful because I don't think from what I was told by Danny Baker, their podcast, they don't attack a lot. They defend a lot, but they don't attack a lot. So I hope he's right. And he said it's going to be interesting to see if Barnsley can break them down. That's his take on it. So I think we've got the ability to break teams down. We wouldn't have had last year. We did just pass it across the front of their defence last year. This year we'll have a go. We'll have a go at them, I think. So I hope that it all looks good. And if it's another win on Saturday, then I'll be smiling. So.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you well, Andy. A really encouraging start for Barnsley, so it's great to see, and look forward to catching up with you later in the season.
Cheers, Gabe. It's lovely. Take care, mate.
Yeah, look after yourself. Cheers.
Thank you.
Delighted to be joined now by Matt Lax from New York Talk.
Oh, no. Not him. We're going to beat you on Tuesday, young Max.
I know.
Matt, we're going to beat you on Tuesday, mate.
You absolutely are.
Not him. Oh, anybody but him. It could have been worse. It could have been Matt Farley. I thought that's what you were saying when you said Matt. Thank God. It's only Matt Lax. Get ready. Strap your sending on Tuesday, Matt. Anyway, I'll get off now, Gabe.
No worries. Oh, brilliant. Well, that was a lively start, wasn't it? Matt, it's obviously been a tough start for Rotherham, hasn't it?
Can you get me out? I'm still here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I've had enough.
All right.
I don't want to talk to him.
Okay. All right. See ya. Yeah, see you, Andy. Right. I've completely lost my train of thought there. And 2 defeats in the first 3 games, wasn't it, for Rotherham United, Matt? Just wondering if there's a little bit of concern, especially after that performance at Cardiff.
There is, yes. There definitely is. You can't kind of put those certainly the performance against Cardiff in and not be disappointed. On paper, it looks better now because Stevenage and Cardiff are the top 2. So it does look a bit better having lost to those teams away from home.
Yeah.
But the manner of performance, particularly the second half against Cardiff, we were 1-0 down on stroke at half time. And the downing of tools is probably a bit too harsh, but the downing of the heads, let's say the downing of when the heads dropped, let's say at 1-0, put it that way, was very concerning. It was kind of shades of the last 2 years, where if you go 1-0 down, it's like, oh, well, game's gone. Why are we trying it for 1-0 down? So that's something Matt Amshaw's got to get a lid on. that doesn't come after 3 games. To be fair to Matt, it doesn't come after that. It takes time to build up something, especially with the baggage of last season and to an extent the season before. It's going to take a little bit of time. To be fair, up until when they scored, it wasn't that bad. We kept them arm's length. It was a real defensive performance up until that point. So I didn't have a problem with how I played up until then, but you can't kind of let your heads drop like that after just 1-0 at someone like Cardiff. Because Cardiff are a solid team. They'll take advantage of you. And if they wanted to, Cardiff could have scored 5 or 6 and then that's how far we down tools. It was really, really poor after half-time.
Yeah, what worried me from watching some of the highlights, Matt, was just how passive you looked. I felt you were there was a real lack of engagement, and nobody sort of closed down the opposition. And you'd traditionally be expecting somebody like Liam Kelly to do that. If we're looking at him 5 years ago, that's what he would have done: close people down and put challenges in. But this version of Liam Kelly, who's 35 odd, I don't think he can do that. Certainly not to the same level of consistency and athleticism that he's maybe had previously. And that's a real worry for me. I mean, do you think some solutions can come from remaining additions and returnees from injury? Is that sort of where you're putting your hope into now?
It is, yeah. And I think last week there was a couple of injuries and absentees. Joe Powell was absent because he had his first baby. And Sean McWilliams was also had a slight strain, and obviously Kieran Spence is a longer term injury. But we needed an extra body in that midfield. We kind of left Drew Yearwood and Liam Kelly to do all the midfield work, and Liam Kelly tried to do. I think he tried to kind of press, be aggressive, and it just left too much work for Yearwood to do. Yearwood was basically the only central midfield on the pitch at times because Liam Kelly was wandering off trying to be aggressive when we didn't really need him to be. Needing to do that. So I think with Joe Powell back this week, because obviously he's had his baby and everything's hunky-dory, Sean Williams is back and Kieran Spencer's probably 10 days away, I think. He's going to miss the next 2 games, but he is close, and hopefully maybe another addition from the midfield. I don't think it's a massive problem long-term because of these injuries. I think it was a bit of a perfect storm of absentees and injuries last week, and against a team like Cardiff who can pick you off if you are off it. I think it was a bit of a perfect storm. I hope it was a bit of a perfect storm, should I say?
Yeah. I think you're right to bring up the form of the 2 teams you've lost to, and the fact that you have actually beaten Port Vale, in which you were very good in the first half of that game. So if you add that into the context of things, then you can stay reasonably level-headed at this stage. But I think it's probably the nature of the performance and how easily and not landing a glove. So even first half might have been mildly competitive. 1 shot at goal. I mean, that's the worrying thing. You want to be landing a glove on your opponents, even in those difficult games.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely do. And that shot came on 85 minutes, and that was from the wing-back who just fancied a run and had a pop. It wasn't a well-made chance. It was just a pop from distance. So I think we're bottom of the league for shots taken, which is not a surprise, I suppose, with Stevenage aren't going to give you much. If you get anything against Stevenage, especially at their place, you've got to take it. We didn't really create too much. And like I said, particularly second half against Cardiff, we were just never in game.
I think one person you'd be looking to have a bit more of a put your foot on the ball and have a bit more influence on games might be Dan Gore, who you've got on loan from Manchester United. Are you sort of hoping for a little bit more from him?
Definitely. He was the one bright spark against Cardiff. He's very, very aggressive. He is a classic Rotherham United. He's like a bit of a Jamie Lindsay or Ollie Rathbone, but much better technically.
Yeah,
he's a real ratty. Yeah, a real ratty kind of player. I think he was, but at the same time, he was completely anonymous against Stevenage. So this is the problem with getting loanees of his kind of ilk. It was a team like Stevenage who play in that way to try and make the game scrappy. Dan Gore just didn't know what to do himself. He just couldn't. Right. He didn't seem to be able to work it out, and that will come. In 3 months' time, he'll be a much better player. This is his first senior football, so that game will have been good for him in the long run. But at the time, he just like a little bit like a lost puppy. But he is going to get better. He's everything I want in midfield. He's aggressive. He's good on the ball. He's forward thinking. He'll help start the press. He's everything I want in a midfielder. But he's green around the ears. It's just going to take a bit more time than we'd all like it to.
Yeah, certainly will. Would you want Jordan Hugill to be your first choice striker at League One level?
No. No, and it's a shame because on paper, we talked about this when he first signed 2 or 3 years ago. On paper, he's a Rotherham United player because he does try and press. He is a bully. He's big and strong and everything else that comes with that kind of striker. He's lost something. I don't know whether it's his will to compete or whether it's legs. I don't know. Something's gone.
I think it's legs. I remember him. I actually really liked him in the late 2010s where he would hassle and harry all game. And I really liked that work ethic. But is the amount of ground that he can cover, as it seems to have significantly reduced in the last 5 years or so. And I don't think he's got the footballing ability or finishing ability to sort of make up for that. So I do feel like he's someone who's got high, his profile looks good because of the levels he's played at. But actually, if his best attributes are reduced, then there's that danger that his stock's going to drop quite quickly. And so that's a concern that I would probably have with Jordan Hugill.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a Tete in on loan from Cardiff in the hope that he's a bit more mobile. And I don't think he's massively more mobile, but I think he is much more mobile than Jordan Hugill is at the minute. The frustration with Hugill is last week against Cardiff, the way we set up was to build up pressure and give it to Jordan Hugill to release it so he can hold it up for a second and lay off Martha and Dango. His hold-up play was non-existent, and it was set up for him to be the man on the day. And if he's not going to step up and be the man on the day now, I don't know when he's going to do it for the rest of the season. I was hoping this was the turning point. He had a good pre-season, got a hat-trick against Harrogate, I think it was. You think, okay, this is it. Jordan Hugill might be back now, and this, that, and the other. But other than the first half an hour against Port Vale, he's kind of been non-existent, unfortunately.
Well, I will bring in Si from Cardiff City World, not to pile it on too much, Matt. I just wanted to ask your perspective, Si, on Rotherham, because did you see it was all bad in the second half, or what did you make of them in the first half, and how was your overall assessment?
I thought the first half, we had a lot of the ball, but we didn't do a lot with it in the final third, which is a general issue with us because we're kind of still learning the way the manager wants to play and stuff like that. But the second half was one-sided, like it was quite brutal. And to be honest, I thought Cardiff, without piling it on a bit, like I thought we should have won a bit more comfortably than what we did. However, I will say, I was just listening to what you were saying about Dango. He was a player who I said to my son on Saturday that you could see that he's had a real good education in terms of his upbringing through football, and I like the fact that he's nasty and he's a wind-up merchant. Like I really like that he's not just good at football; he's also got a bit about him. But obviously, with these young players, unfortunately, they're learning to play first-team football, aren't they? So you might get a good game out of him, in the Cardiff game, but then in midweek he struggles, and it's just the nature of the beast when you've got teenagers and early 20s coming and playing their first experience or their early experiences of sort of men's football, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Matt, I guess in terms of the season overall, I imagine you're a little bit more apprehensive than you were before the season based on the first 3 games. But are you sort of hoping, still kind of clinging on to the belief that recruitment and return ease from injury will help stabilise things for Rotherham United?
Yeah, definitely. And the young players we've signed, that although as a team we've not performed, individually there's been some really good performance. We've mentioned Dan Gore, Lenny Aguirre, who's now injured, but he's been excellent at centre back. Denzel Hall, who's coming at right wing back, was wonderful against Port Vale and really good against Stevenage. Ajani Martha's played really well against Salford in the Cup and had spells against Cardiff when we had a bit of the ball where it looked like it could be really tricky. So all those, Denzel Hall's the oldest one at 24 out of those I've just mentioned. So these are all going to take a little bit of time. So I think if we've got to, it is tough because you've got to remain patient. For a club like us who've experienced such highs over the last 10 years or so, this is a tough period for us to recalibrate, especially in League One. I think if we can be patient and and we're not like in a really horrible position December time, I think these players will have learned a lot of lessons really, really quickly. I'm hoping they will have learned a lot of lessons really quickly. the early signs from those players are there. Matt Hampshire's just got to work it out himself because he's a young manager as well. I am still positive. I don't think we'll get it playoffs, but I think we'll have a boring season, hopefully.
That's the dream. Matt, thanks so much. Love your stuff on the New York talk. So thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, mate. Have a good one, boys.
Great stuff. Si, just wanted to talk to you about Cardiff start to the season. Obviously unbeaten at this point, which is really encouraging. Would you say it's Ruben Colwill who's been the star performer for the Bluebirds?
He has been our best player in every game, so you've got to say yes. But I think it's been a collective improvement. The manager's focused on, he's moved a lot of experienced players out in the summer, and then he's gone, we've got a load of talented youngsters, let's play them. And they're playing together. A lot of them have played a lot of football together, but it's obviously different to do it at a higher level, men's football, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would say people like Ryan Wintle have been important. And I haven't always been his biggest fan, but me and you had a discussion about him in the summer, where I hadn't really seen a lot of the things that people had told me about with him. So I was interested. I still haven't really seen the progressive side of his passing, but what I have seen is someone who's experienced in amongst a lot of youngsters, who's just kept it calm, done the dirty work.
Honestly, Si, once Ryan Wintle gets going in a Barry Murphy system, you're definitely going to see him. I promise you, because his passing range is brilliant. He's definitely got it in him. I think he might have lost it a little bit over the last few years because he hasn't been in the same kind of system that he was in at Crewe, but he's definitely got that in his locker.
I hope so, mate, because I do think that the one encouraging thing for me as a Cardiff fan at the moment is, apart from the fact, average age of 22 and all the rest of it, and all these young players and academy players, is it feels like we're only just starting to get going. You can see that there's still a few teething problems with the system and some of the players just understanding what their role is in the system. But then there's others who've really taken to it and have got a massive understanding of it straight away. And I think I said after, who was it? Swindon game, at halftime, I'd said to my friend who was sat in front of me, I said, in a couple of weeks or months, whenever it is, this is all going to click and someone is going to take a real heavy beating, because one of the things with this Cardiff side is, if we get ahead, we are very, very difficult to play against, because we're happy to look after. The thing is, we're happy to sit in with the ball and wait. And if you've got a goal up, then obviously it's on the other team to come and attack you. And then as soon as they come out with their sort of shells a little bit, that's when it sort of plays into the hands. The one thing we do lack a bit of, we need some pace to get in behind. I think that's the final bit in the jigsaw for me. You saw it a little bit in the Wimbledon game, where a lot of the build-up play and the interchanging and the rotations are really, really good.
Yeah.
But you haven't quite got that. You need a winger, incidentally, someone who was linked with us this week was Rabbi Matondo, who's someone who's quite direct and will get in behind. I think that'll be the kind of key to opening it up. But you can see straight away the influence that Barry Murphy's had on individuals, but also on the team collectively. Because, you've got to remember, this team was devoid of confidence. And we barely won a game last year, especially away from home. And they've played, they've deserved to win all of the games they've played. The Port Vale one was a weird one, because I think that was the first physical test for some of these young lads.
Yeah.
And I think there was portions of the game where they struggled with it. But even in that game, we worked some really good wide positions. But for whatever reason, our crossing in that game and our corners and everything were just diabolical. But set pieces this year is another thing. Under Errol Bullitt, we basically stayed up by being a threat from set pieces. And then last year we didn't score one. I think we scored one goal, which was in the South Wales derby. And apart from that, we didn't score any set piece goals. So this year, obviously, Ruben's banged in a couple of free kicks. I think we scored 2 from corners as well. So that being a threat again is also massive. But yeah, it's just that final bit at the moment. I think we need a bit of directness. But it's happy. I'm happy, mate. Really happy.
Hopefully those additions can come, but I think because BBM's so good at developing players who have come through the academy, it's almost like having made signings because there's players that sort of a different profile of manager wouldn't have given a second glance to. But I wanted to talk about Dylan Lawler, Si. We spoke, you spoke very fondly of him in our summer deep dive and felt like this was a big season because of the potential that he's got. Have we seen echoes of that potential in the early weeks?
So it was really fascinating, his start to the season, actually, because pre-season, he looked every bit the player that everyone thinks he is. And then the first game of the season, Peterborough, on the ball was unreal. And it really is his ability to break the lines with his passing and thread like a ball through, where most defenders would just go to the fullback or go back across to the centre back. Or his ability to break the lines really opens up, and particularly the way that Brian Barry Murphy wants to play, where he sort of Dylan Lawler will play it into one of the midfielders, and then the fullback or the midfielders are running beyond that to get onto the ball. And I think he was really, really good. But in that Peterborough game, he did get out-muscled a couple of times. And I think it just threw him a little bit. So it was a learning curve. And then he came out of the side for the Port Vale game. But then he was back in for the League Cup game against Swindon. And then he's been back in ever since. And he's been excellent. And him and Will Fish look every bit the partnership, I think, going forward, which is, again, another fascinating element to it, because Callum Chambers obviously was made captain, was suspended for the first game, which we won, and Fish and Lawler did very well together. But then Chambers came in for the Port Vale game, wasn't great, and then he was in the Swindon game, made a mistake that cost a goal and wasn't great, and then he was dropped. So that was an early test for Brian Barry Murphy, to have to drop your captain. However, I suspect that's why he likes the players to pick the captain rather than him, because it gives him that ability to, everyone's on the same playing field. Doesn't matter if you're captain, you're vice captain. If you're not up to the standard, then you'll be on the bench. And it was the right decision. And it was in another sort of just an added thing with Dylan Lawler. When it has been Dylan Lawler and Will Fish in defence, when Callum Chambers has come on, he's either come on for Dylan, or if they've left the two of Fish and Lawler on, Lawler has been the one to go to right back, which in my opinion is a mistake. It should be Chambers who goes to right back, because Dylan Lawler is our best centre back. And on Tuesday against Wimbledon, Callum Chambers went to right back, not centre back, which was fascinating for me to see. But also, I look at it as like, do you know what? The manager's learning about the players. He's learning more and more about the squad as a group and individuals, and he's seen that that's the better option. So I'm happy with that. Like I was a big proponent of Brian Barry Murphy long before he was linked with the club, but I'm just very happy. Like, he's made a big impact, Gabe, in a short space of time. And I just hope the club back him now, because we've made one signing, which is the keeper, which is, and by the way, what a signing. But even so, we've got one left back at the club. So, you'd like to think there's a couple coming in, but it's Cardiff, so you just never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully a couple more additions to follow. Cian Ashford then, Si, are we looking at a big season for him where he can really cement himself as a first team regular?
Yeah, I think so. I think I always felt from the moment that Brian Barry Murphy came in, and you look at the squad and you sort of, you have a look and you think who's going to suit the system, who's going to suit the way he likes to play. I felt like Cian was going to be all right, because he's a very technical footballer. Hasn't got blistering pace, but his movement is very, very intelligent, and he's tactically quite astute. So, Brian Barry Murphy, our wingers literally stay on the touchline for the whole game.
Yeah.
And what it does, obviously, is it isolates the wingers versus the fullback. So even though Cian hasn't got blistering pace, because he's quite often ends up one-on-one with the fullback, it's enough. He's got enough guile and enough skill to beat his man
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he's very clever. Cian is with his sort of crossing. He doesn't just whip it in for the sake of it. He'll quite often, find the man, pull it back, whatever it may be. And he's also those double movements. So when a cross comes in from the other side on the left, you'll see him quite often. He'll sort of feint to go in to the goal. The defender will go in, and then he's dropped in around the penalty spot, and he scores 2 goals, I think, already. So that's encouraging, because I think the first game against Peterborough, he didn't have a great game. And I think when Edward looked at everything which had gone well, he was one of the sort of, not negatives, but like the bit where, he didn't look as good as he can be. But since then, he's been excellent. I would say as well, another example of Brian Barry Murphy adapting and learning. The first game, Kean Ashford played off the left, and all of Kean's best work last season came off the right.
Yes.
So he played Peterborough on the he was on the left, and he struggled, and I can tell you why as well. But basically, Joel Bagan tends to invert more than overlap, whereas K Pacquiao on the other side will overlap and get bomb forward.
Sure.
But what you end up with is, because Ruben plays in the 8 on that side as well. If Kean drops in off the left because he's right-footed, Ruben drops in, and Joel Bagan all invert, you end up with a lot of them all in the same place.
Much easier to condense the space, isn't it? Yeah,
of course, yeah. So as soon as he's been on the right, he's been way better, and I think, as I said, I think he's really suited to the system. What I would like to see is a bit of competition in those wide areas, because obviously Ollie Tanner got injured. You've got Isaac Davis, who can play there, although I would like to see Isaac be the alternative to Yusuf Salic in the later in games and stuff. But Isaac can play wide. But we are a wing. We needed a winger anyway, and now we're a winger down for 4 months. I think Ollie Tanner's out for. So we do have a young lad, Naya Kahawa, who played in pre-season, who's very direct and very skillful. But I think I can't remember his exact age, but I think he's about 17. So
maybe for a Welsh loan or a non-league loan or something.
Yeah, maybe. Or he might come into the squad later in the season, but I think at this moment it doesn't seem, at least, that he's looking at him. But you never know whether there's a bit of cat and mouse with the board and the club as well, whereby he doesn't want to use him, because then they'll say, "Oh, you've got a winger there in the young lad." So I wonder if there's a bit of that. But he did look good in pre-season, I've got to be fair, but it's a big step up from pre-season.
Moving on to the macro picture then, Si, would you say that on balance the early season performances have made you a bit more optimistic than even you were when we did the summer deep dive?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the reasons I'm really confident is that, well, I say that if the season was a 25 league season, I'd be pretty confident Cardiff would win the league. But the season is not 25 games. And my biggest concern is that this young squad, because it is a really, really young team, and that's not just the academy players, it is a young team.
Yeah.
And my worry is that, 30, 40 games in, when the pressure's on, they might get a bit of burnout if we do not get some support in there for them, because we have got a small squad.
Sure.
And I think there's obvious positions that we need to beef up, but equally, I think you need some players who can. I'm not saying like we need to sign like a 30-year-old, but we need to sign a couple of players who've been there and done it, just to be able to help out the younger players when they need a break. Joel Bagan he cannot play every single game, and he's our only left back, so it's it's an issue. So I think we need an alternative for Ruben as well. Possibly Joel will do that anyway, but Ruben Colwell has been exceptional, and he's been really taken to. I will say as well, if you remember in our deep dive, I said that I thought that they should give the captaincy to Ruben Colwell. He got the vice captaincy, and but because Callum Chambers has been on the bench, Ruben's been captain, and he has taken to it. Craig Bellamy's reasoning for leaving Ruben Colwell out of the Welsh squad has always been he doesn't fit the profile because he doesn't do enough sprinting. Ruben Colwell I've watched every single game live, and the sprinting and the ground he's covering at high speed, that reasoning won't be there anymore. So it'll be really interesting, because I know a lot of Cardiff fans are just assuming that, you know, Ruben and Joel Colwell might be in the Wales. I don't think either will be in the Wales squad. I think Ronan Kipakiao will be in there, but for whatever reason, Craig Bellamy doesn't fancy Ruben. You know, it's one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's got to change. Absolutely, Ruben Colwell, I think, has to come into the equation. Such talent. So really looking forward to seeing how he develops. Si, great, real pleasure to have you on this evening. So thank you so much for making the time for us. Thanks to everyone for watching at home. If you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. And we'll see you again for another League One podcast very soon.